Hi guys, I'm back with another video, and today I am going to be doing the story on Verse, updating you guys, telling you guys what happened, and just updating on everything. I wanted to wait a while before I made this video for obvious reasons, but it's been almost 2 months and things have been going well. He's been doing great, so I'm ready to talk about it. It was a Sunday night, and Verse was a couple days shy of being 3 months old. So he was still 2 months, but almost 3 months old. We had just got Story down for bed. Avi was not here, and I fed Verse. He was grumpy, he didn't want to go to bed, and I finally had got him to bed. And a few minutes later, I'm like I don't know how to explain it. So I have postpartum anxiety, if you know what that means. So I watch him all the time and I'm very paranoid about him. I always think something's gonna go wrong with him, and I'm almost glad I had that, because with the other two I didn't have that and I would lay them down and do my thing. But with him, I'm just very like nervous and anxious all the time with him, and I always watch him and I don't let him like out of my sight. I don't go lay him in his room or our room and then leave or anything like that. So he had fallen asleep and it had only been a couple minutes, and I was watching him breathe. I noticed that his pajamas weren't rising and falling, and sometimes, you know, when you like look at your baby and at first you can't see anything, so you're like looking really hard and then you see him breathe or whatever. Well, I was watching and nothing was happening, so I hurried, like quickly got up and picked him up, and his body just like was completely limp. Like it was like this, but his head was down, his arms were down, like everything was super limp and like heavy almost. And that's when obviously I knew something was wrong. He was not breathing, and we started freaking out basically. I had taken first aid CPR for babies and adults in school not that long ago. I took a 4-hour class, and when I took it I was like, this is pointless, I don't need to take this. But now I look back and I'm so thankful I took it. I knew that someone had to do something, because if both of us were freaking out and running around, then we aren't helping him. And I remembered what to do, and he hadn't taken any classes, so it's very important to take classes, because you never really truly know what could happen to your babies, even if they're born healthy. And so I got up and I had flipped him over like upside down, because I didn't know if he had choked basically. He had no issues before, he had just eaten, so he could have choked. It had been a good 20-30 minutes though since he had eaten. But I flipped him like this on my leg facing down. You guys know how to do that if you've taken classes before, or you've just seen a video or whatever it is. And I started like doing hits on his back. Now I was nervous because I didn't want to hurt him, but I'm like, okay, well, it's either I do this or I could potentially lose my child. So I was hitting his back a good few times, would flip him back to check if anything was there or if there was any movement or anything like that. I was doing that for a while. I knew that if those weren't working, eventually I would have to do CPR on him, which I did know how to do as well. While this was all going on, it felt like 10 years, but it was only a matter of 2 minutes that this all was going on. Brandon was on the phone with 911. I just knew like we needed to. I didn't know for sure what was going on, but I just knew that we needed to call. So he was on the phone with them and they were on their way. They were asking if we started anything, if we knew how, and I already had said yes. And eventually I did turn him around. I don't want to give too many details because it's like pretty traumatizing to me, but at one point his eyes did open. I will say his face was very red and turning purplish blue around his mouth area. Eventually though, he did open his eyes, but he still was not taking any breaths. So I flipped him back and he just was okay. He was moving finally, but everything seemed very slow motion to him. Like he just seemed very slow and like wasn't making eye contact. He was just like veering off into the other side of the room. So this had been almost 2 minutes of me doing what I did. And whatever details I didn't add in, I probably won't, because it's obviously traumatizing. But I'm trying to make this video to update and give awareness at the same time, if that makes sense. eventually he was moving, and he was yawning a ton. Like, that's all he was doing. He never cried during this moment, no tears, which was kind of scary because I was like, okay, well, are you okay? Because you're not crying. The ambulance came. He cried a little bit with them, so that was like almost like relieving. They checked his vitals, everything looked good at that time, and they said that they could take him to Children's, or we could take him since he is alert and everything's showing that he's okay at the moment. So we decided to take him. So I called my mom, and she stayed for a little bit, and then his mom ended up coming, and she helped a ton because we weren't home from Sunday until we came home Wednesday. So we weren't home for a few nights. And my aunt also came, my sister-in-law also came, and it was really like a lot of help with the kids, so that was nice. But we ended up going to Children's, and at this point, you know, I'm more in shock. So I was just like staring at him, and I'm like, no, I didn't cry that whole time. Brandon did cry. It's overwhelming when something happens to your baby, obviously, and when you're not doing anything and you're just watching. So he was very emotional. I think I was more in shock that just happened, and I had no tears. I had no like thoughts or anything like that. I really thought he was gone. I'm gonna be completely honest. I really thought that I wasn't going to see him again, and it didn't hit me until we were there. They asked us a bunch of questions. They hooked him up to things, and they wanted to watch him overnight. The next day, that's when it was the next day. I was holding him, and he was in his little gown. I had pulled an all-nighter because I didn't even care that the freaking machines were on. I just didn't believe them or trust them or anything like that. I wanted to see him for myself that he was okay, so I pulled an all-nighter, and I remember just holding him and like crying because I was like, what if that was the last time I saw you? What if that was the last time I got to hug you, kiss you, smell you? What if I had to explain that to his sisters? I don't know, like it all just hit me at once, the what ifs. Like they just kept running through my head. I was like, wow, like what if all these things could have happened, and I don't know how I would have lived or gone another day. So I'm very thankful that he is with me, and he's still here, and it happened the way it did to where I saw him and I reacted very quickly. Basically, there was no true explanation, more of something where, like, if you guys know about SIDS, it's unexplained. So they fall asleep and they can get into a really deep sleep. The babies forget to breathe, and it's nothing that you did, or it's nothing health-wise. It's just unexplained. So it was basically the start of that. They call it like aborted SIDS. It's where SIDS began, but I happened to be there to intervene, and I was there quick enough because it could have even been 10 minutes and it was already too late type thing. But he'd only been asleep for like a couple minutes. I don't know, it's scary to think, like, had I laid him down and not checked on him, then the outcome would have been completely different to what it was. So yeah, I don't want to get too far into that. That's basically what happened. He is okay, obviously, but yeah, the following few days, oh, were we getting grumpy? The following few days he did have some testing done. So he had a swallow test done. It's basically where you do an x-ray video of them drinking their milk, and he was aspirating horribly. Basically all of his milk was going straight into his lungs, and it was just really, really bad. So he's on a prescribed gel mix food with my milk, and it's at one of the highest levels. So his food is basically like a pudding jello consistency. It's not milk, and he has to drink that. One of the nurses was really rude. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Like, she told me, well, if you guys, Brandon wasn't here, he went back home to, you know, be with the kids. We kind of went back and forth. She was like, well, if you want to go home, then he's gonna need a tube, like a feeding tube. And I started crying my eyes out. And I'm not a crier, like, I'm really not. You have to really get to me for me to cry, and it takes a lot for me to upset me that way. Like, if you upset me, I'm more likely gonna just get mad first. Like, you're gonna make me mad. she just goes, so is that what you want to do, or? And I was like, no, like, I need to talk to his dad first. Like, I was crying and I was just so upset, so I talked to him and he got so mad that she made me cry, and he's like, I'm not putting a feeding tube in him, he doesn't need one, like, he's been eating the food, he's been getting it down. And so they made us stay another night because he had lost some weight, which was gonna happen. I mean, he went from milk to freaking pudding. Like, it's hard to get all of it out of the bottle and it takes longer, so he was eating less and more hours in between, so he had to wait longer. Another thing the same nurse said was, I had asked her, well, I'm watching his vitals, and at what point do I need to worry that they've dropped too low? And she just looks at me and goes, well, you just kind of have to hope for the best. I was like, just thinking, like, I'm literally here because he almost died and you're telling me to hope for the best. So I told Brandon that too, and we eventually just got so fed up because even like throughout the night we switched off and on all night because his monitors would come off, because he'd kick them off or they'd stop working and they'd be going off on the machine, and they'd take like 10-15 minutes to come in to fix them. And we had told her that, and she goes, yeah, well, if we know that the baby's fine, then we might take longer to come in. And I was just so shocked, and eventually we started telling some of the other workers, and they all had like a meeting within the whole entire group that had stayed with us the past few days that we were there. And they all came in, and we just ended up calling him out. Like, Brandon started in and was like, well, you said this, you made her cry, you did these things. And I like just straight up looked at her and I said, I can't believe you told me that I needed to just hope for the best. Like, I'm here because he wasn't responsive, he wasn't breathing, and I get here for him to be safe and to be taken care of and watched, but really you guys aren't taking any action to make sure that he's safe and being watched. I have to do it. I'm connecting him back to monitors and watching his vitals and all these things, and we treat our dogs better at my externship than you do to these children, or at least my child, and I find that very sad. And we just kind of went on a tangent about that, just calling her out. Like, I get people have bad attitudes, but when you're taking care of people's babies and babies that aren't healthy or are sick or had something happen to them, this isn't just a regular doctor's office, we're at Children's Hospital, then you need to fix your attitude or don't work here. Like, these babies are depending on you, and I shouldn't be sitting here watching his vitals, reconnecting him back. Like, what if I didn't know how to do that? There's moms that don't, and when they're clicking the button to get help and you take 10 minutes, I said it took 3 to 5 minutes for him to stop breathing when I put him to sleep, but it takes you 10 minutes to come in. So those 10 minutes he wouldn't even be here if I weren't watching him. She ended up apologizing or whatever, but it still really sat with me the wrong way, and the experience there only got better once we called them out. And I think that's really sad because there are parents that don't call people out. Like me, if it would have been me by myself, I would have just cried and been by myself and watching him the entire time if Brandon hadn't said anything. Like, some people just don't feel comfortable confronting people like that, and that's how I am, so I feel really bad. So we had to stay an extra night because he wasn't gaining weight. He ended up gaining the weight, which I knew he would, and he did not have to get a tube like she said he did. She was basically just very mean, like saying what's gonna happen, like he's gonna get a tube, that's just what's gonna happen, and he never got one, and he still doesn't need one. He went from 13 pounds to now he's over 16 pounds, so he's gaining weight, he's growing, he's healthy, and he's doing very well. I'm glad that they did that swallow test on him because we would have never known. There's a lot of babies that have reflux. If your baby has reflux, get them swallow tested, because pediatricians will automatically be like, oh, they have reflux, here's some cereal to put in your baby's bottle, here's some reflux medication. It's like half the time it's not even reflux, because he was choking every now and again, coughing, having a hard time, and of course it's reflux. And I'm not going to put rice in my baby's bottle. That should be a thing of the past. Sorry, that's my opinion. If you don't agree, that's fine, but I'm not doing that. And he was not even 3 months old, so I'm just glad that he was tested and he has a prescription. You can't buy it at the store, and it's working really well for him. He's doing awesome, and I'm just so thankful for my baby. My aunt was super kind and actually ordered us the Owlet monitor and camera. The camera's actually in Story's room, so I can watch her and listen to her at night because she sleeps in her own big girl bed with Avi, but he sleeps in my room. So he does have a sock, and I oh my gosh, that thing literally gives me such a peace of mind. I know some people have some issues with it. I've never had issues with it. I don't have any false readings. The only time it ever goes off is when I forget to turn the base off, when I take his sock off. But it's been a true blessing. There's been times I've had another scare with him where he's fallen asleep, and he gets into very deep sleeps very fast, and it's hard to get him out of it sometimes. But his monitor thing went down, and like it'll go off once it goes below 80% for heart rate or oxygen, and it was at 80, and he was just in such a deep sleep I had to get him awake. I didn't even end up telling Brandon about it. I think I mentioned it, but I didn't tell him about it when it happened because I didn't want to like scare him, because he ended up being fine. As far as feedings, I feed him like this because it holds him up better instead of holding him like this, because he'll choke. He chokes still on the food, but it's very thick, so that's probably why. I don't cuddle him on his side and hold him when he falls asleep. I put him down. I'm just very cautious with him, and now I'm very paranoid, and I'm still struggling. I feel like sometimes I can't enjoy him as much as I'd like because I'm very nervous and more worried about if he's breathing. This is his new thing, if he's breathing or not. But he's doing really good, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. And we're doing okay. I'm struggling, but we're getting through it. He's almost 5 months in a couple days, and he's doing awesome. And he's such a sweet little boy, like sweetest baby, like very sweet baby, very good, very happy, silly, chubby, sweet. He's just awesome. But that's an update for you guys. I hope I didn't forget anything. He's starting to get wiggly, and my camera's about to die, and Avi's waiting to play. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Take care of your babies, check your babies, push with pediatricians for your babies, get your babies tested, and be careful. Watch your babies, because I'd never thought in a million years that this would happen to me. I thought I was invincible and my kids were fine, and I was wrong, and I learned, and I'm very thankful that he's okay and he's safe and he's healthy and he's a happy boy. But yes, say bye. You want to come say bye, Oz?
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.
They're gonna end it. To end it. Let me end it.